Good afternoon, everyone. We are live again, and today we have one of the most accomplished neurologists in the country, Mr. Dr. C. Udaya Shankar. He comes with over 2 decades of experience managing multiple different ranges of neurological conditions, starting from stroke to a different area of services. And today it's World Stroke Day, and thanks for coming and joining us for this live session, sir. We have received about 10-12 questions from our viewers over the last week with related to stroke and its management. So I'm going to ask you those in next few minutes, sir. So, but before I ask you those questions, if you could address our people about the importance of stroke and how rampant it is in today's society.
Yeah. No, stroke is a very important neurological condition causing both morbidity and mortality. Morbidity is suffering, mortality is death. In fact, it is second or third commonest cause of morbidity in country, and it can cause lot of burden on the economically productive segment of the population and as well as caregivers.
Right.
And the fact that some of the conditions can be prevented makes it very, very important.
Okay. So we'll start with the questions. The first question which came to us is, what is a stroke and what are the different types of stroke?
Yeah. Stroke is a neurological condition caused by disruption of blood flow to various regions of brain and the spinal cord. They result in various neurological complaints which are controlled by that part of the nervous system.
Okay. All right. And what are the different types if we have to classify them?
Yeah, there is a broad classification. The commonest type of stroke is what is called ischemic stroke.
Okay.
Happens in about 80% of cases where there is disruption or occlusion of the blood flow to parts of brain. The second type is what is called hemorrhagic stroke, where in which condition there is a bleeding or a blood clot formation in the brain.
Okay. The next question is, what medical conditions actually increase the risk of stroke?
These medical conditions or associated conditions are called risk factors of stroke. Okay, these are what are called modifiable risk factors. There are non-modifiable risk factors. I'm coming to that later. The risk factors are elevated blood pressure, that is hypertension, diabetes mellitus, elevated cholesterol levels. It is also associated with certain heart conditions.
Okay.
Certain heart conditions can give rise to that. It is also associated with certain changes in the structure of the blood vessel itself, blood vessel wall itself.
Okay.
Blood vessel condition itself. And generally it is associated with so-called unhealthy lifestyle, like very less exercise, sedentary lifestyle, poor habits of eating, and of course certain other habits like smoking. This also increases the risk of stroke. And intake of certain drugs, the recreational drugs, so-called recreational drugs, will also cause an increase in risk of the stroke.
Right. What happens to a human's body, a person's body, when they undergo a stroke? What are the physical changes happen?
Yeah, see, either the ischemic or the hemorrhagic stroke, there is a sudden change in the functioning or sudden disruption of functioning of a region of brain or the spinal cord. You know, blood flow is very important to any organ in the body, and blood supplies oxygen and glucose to the nervous system. It's a very critical to functioning of the nervous system. Okay. So when there is a disruption of the oxygen and glucose, it stops functioning. And when that part which controls that aspect of the body function is stopped, you have a particular complaint. Like, suppose you have the part controlling the speech being affected, then you can have problems in speech, which happens suddenly.
Okay.
One more important point is, brain is a very demanding organ in the body. Even though it is somewhat of a smaller size compared to other organs, it requires almost 20% of the total blood flow in the body, and it's very critically balanced. I mean, the blood flow and the requirements are very critically balanced here. And even a disruption of 2 to 3 minutes of blood flow can give rise to irreversible damage to parts of nervous system.
Okay. So how is it treated, and why is it so important that when somebody uh, experiences a stroke, they need to be rushed to the nearest healthcare facility? Why is it so important?
There are two important reasons. One is now there is a very popular and common saying in neurology. We call it as time is brain. I just mentioned this in the previous answer that the brain is very sensitive to changes in disruption of oxygen and glucose. So if the disruption progresses beyond a certain level, the damage may be irreversible. So we have to address this issue very quickly.
So these are the risk factors of stroke. One is
No.
an irreversible damage to the brain.
Now, irreversible damage happens irrespective of the risk. Whenever there is a disruption, it happens. So my point is, we should not allow that to happen. We should intervene very quickly. My second point is, we have a very good intervention now called thrombolysis treatment for stroke.
Thrombolysis
Treatment, which is an injection given to dissolve the blood clots or the disruptions, certain types of disruptions in the blood flow to the nervous system, but they are not given to all the stroke patients. They are given only to certain patients who come within 4.5 hours of onset of stroke.
Okay.
That is why it is very important for the patient to come very quickly.
Right.
Very quickly.
Right.
Okay, that's why we say time is brain. So that we can try to salvage some functions.
Right.
From irreversible damage, so-called irreversible damage.
Right. Are strokes and heart diseases related?
Yes, I mentioned earlier
Right.
that it is one of the modifiable risk factors. You know, heart beats with a regular rhythm,
Right.
and it also has a pumping function. When there is a sudden change in heart rhythm, it can cause disruption of blood flow, or it can cause formation of blood clots inside the heart itself. The commonest rhythm disturbance is called what is called atrial fibrillation.
Atrial fibrillation.
Which is very common in some of the elderly subgroups of population, and this clot can travel upwards through the neck arteries into the brain.
Okay.
And that can cause stroke.
Okay.
This is called cardiogenic embolus, cardiogenic stroke.
So somebody who has a cardiac profile.
Certain cardiac problems.
Certain cardiac.
Yeah, like this atrial fibrillation, or in some people, poor pumping function, poor efficiency of the pumping function of heart, or certain changes in the heart walls. You know, your heart has 4 chambers.
Right.
It has got walls. Certain changes called akinetic segments and all that can give rise to formation of the clot there. That is why it is intimately related.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sir, just to clear this point, so is there a possibility somebody who had a cardiac surgery can get into a stroke? Is there any possibility of such?
There is a possibility. See, when somebody undergoes cardiac surgery,
right,
usually they will be given medicines to maintain the stream of the blood flow, with certain medicines called blood thinners or anticoagulants. And of course, when they undergo cardiac surgery, in some people there may be introduction of other material into the heart called valves and other things. Sometimes it can give rise to stroke by formation of the clot.
Thank you for clearing that, sir. Now, next question is it hereditary? So can it pass from one generation to the next?
Yes, that is the simple answer is yes. But how it happens is slightly complex. This is what is called multifactorial inheritance, because there are multiple risk factors in operation when somebody has stroke, and most of these risk factors are again inherited. They run from generation to generation.
Right.
For example, diabetes, it's called maternal inheritance.
Maternal inheritance.
Okay. Hypertension, it's called multifactorial inheritance. So we have inheriting risk factors, and they also contribute to the stroke. That is why we see very common occurrence of stroke in generations of families.
Sure.
It's more common, yes.
It's pretty common when it's running in a family.
It is commoner than other population, that much you can say.
Right. So the next question is, after someone had an episode of stroke, what can the family or the people who are around the patient can be done so that he doesn't get another series of stroke?
Yeah. Just one more, I'm going to add one point here. In the identification point itself, identification by family itself. there is a very important eponym called, or a short abbreviation called FAST, F-A-S-T, to identify stroke by non-medical personnel or by family. FAST refers to face, arm, speech and time. Okay, the family can see, if they see there is a loss of symmetry of the face, or the family sees or patient feels that there is weakness or numbness of hands, or if somebody sees that there is slurring of speech, problem in speaking, they have to suspect that it is stroke, especially if it is sudden onset. And T refers to time. Again, it goes back to that point, time is brain.
Time is brain.
So once you identify, of course, I told you, you should intervene quickly. And if somebody unfortunately gets the stroke, the family, what they can do is to prevent it, the family or the patient has to identify the risk factors properly. I mentioned the risk factors: hypertension, diabetes, heart problems, smoking. So all this should be addressed too. And in addition, the patient should adopt a healthy lifestyle. Like dietary modifications, adequate exercise, regular aerobic exercises if possible. And of course, to go back to the earlier lifestyle, should undergo physiotherapy. In some people, occupational therapy or speech therapy.
Sure, sir. You just spoke about the symptoms. Can the symptoms vary because of the, say, age group? Say somebody who's 65-year-old versus somebody who's a 40-year-old. Can the symptoms vary, or there is a?
It can vary.
It can vary.
See, it may seem surprising, but it also happens in children.
Okay.
Even infants, neonates. Stroke can happen there. So it depends on the maturity of the nervous system at the point where the stroke occurs. Obviously, in an infant or a just born child, if the stroke happens, we may not be able to see those changes like in an adult due to communication or other changes. Yes, theoretically there can be some changes.
Okay. Well, we are moving toward the end of this session, and before we close the session, I have one last question for you, sir. The question is, well, we have heard that people who eat seafood, that can actually trigger stroke. So my question is this a myth or a fact? Number two is there any dietary plan you can suggest for people so that they don't come across such a fatal disease?
Regarding first question, I'm not entirely sure about that.
Okay, so that's pretty much a myth, you can say that.
It could be, because it is, as I told you, stroke is usually something which is multifactorial. There are multiple risk factors operating. Just because one takes a type of food, it doesn't mean that it will protect you.
Okay.
It may not happen like that. Yeah, regarding diet, irrespective of presence of diabetes or blood pressure, we suggest what is called a healthy fiber-rich diet. Having fiber-rich foods, plenty of vegetables, plenty of pulses, reduction of intake of saturated fats, reduction of sugars, refined carbohydrates, reduction of refined carbohydrates. And added to that, yes, if there are super added medical conditions, like if somebody has diabetes, then you have to strictly follow that dietary regimen.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, and thank you everyone for joining us for this wonderful FB Live session. We'll come back with more such session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.